Good evening and welcome to the City Council meeting of June the 26th. I call this meeting to order, and Madam Clerk, would you read the roll call, please?
Yes. Mr. Braun?
Present.
Mr. Shyland?
Present.
Mr. Moore?
Present.
Ms. Reclue?
Present.
Mr. Shiverdecker? Mr. Simmons?
Here.
Mr. Stone?
Present.
And Mr. Vaughn.
Here.
7 council members present and 1 absent.
Okay, very good. Thank you. If you'd all rise with me, we'll now participate in the invocation, and we'll be led by Pastor Williamson. Thank you, Bruce.
Privilege, sir.
You'd go right on into the Pledge of Allegiance upon your termination of the invocation.
Certainly will. Heavenly Father, I'm going to keep first things first. I want to pray for the surrounding part of mid-state from wind, excessive rain, road closures, lightning strikes, and power line problems. And in the same prayer, I want to thank you, Lord, for the rain, for the farmers in our land. We've really received a good rain, but the low-lying areas, floodplains, they've suffered during the day and still in the evening. So we just ask you to bless those that are working recoveries, working roadways, trying to retrieve folks and property and vehicles. And going in tonight, Lord, that you bless all emergency services, our police officers, first responders, firefighters, all those who will respond to the emergencies of the people. Grateful, Lord, that the farmers have a breath now living where we live in this county and surrounding areas. The farmers are livelihood for all of us, so I pray your blessings on them after this much needed rain. We lift up our community. Thank you, Lord, for the progress that we make day to day, the infrastructure progress. I'm grateful all over our city. Thankful, Lord, that as we grow, you grow us and you provide us good leadership and oversight. And for that, I thank you, Lord, for our council persons and mayor and all of those who administer and lead this city in its work. I want to continue to pray for Mayor Benton, Chief Myers, Mr. and Mrs. Reclue, Mr. Chyland, Mr. Moore, and obviously anyone else within the city family who needs your daily love and strength. We just pray your blessings on them. For this session tonight, we're deeply grateful for those that serve us and those that have come from the community and beyond to participate and share in this session. For the discussions that are held and any decisions that are made, we pray first that they're pleasing to you. All of this, with one voice, we pray together through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Face the flag. Attention, salute, and pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you, Pastor. Appreciate it. At the beginning of every council meeting, we set time aside for those who reside in the city or anyone who has a concern they would like to share with the council about city business to come forward and do that. We just ask that you give us your name and your address and limit your comments to no more than 5 minutes, of which the clerk will time you. So. At this time, I extend an invitation to anyone who'd like to address the council to please come forward to the microphone. Council will not interact with you, but we will be glad to take your concern. Seeing no one coming forward, we'll move on to our next item of the agenda, of which I think we probably really ought to just skip over.
Yep.
But with that, we really can't, and I understand. So I'm going to ask Mr. J.C. Miller if he'll come forward. I think I'm just going to. As most of you know, J.C. has decided that he's going to retire. And of course, it saddens us and also gives us great joy. We're going to miss your bright personality And anyway, we want to at least give you this proclamation on your retirement, basically. Whereas on the occasion of the retirement of solid waste manager J.C. Miller from the employ of the city of Fulton after 27 years, 11 months, 29 days.
One more day.
It is proper that the city record an expression of our grateful appreciation of his faithful and exemplary service. And whereas J.C. has conscientiously served the city of Fulton, Missouri, commencing on July 1, 1990, as a solid waste foreman, with subsequent promotion to solid waste operations supervisor, landfill supervisor, and his final promotion to solid waste manager on March 6, 2000. And whereas the performance of his duties and responsibilities and his working relationships were characterized by his professional and expertise. And whereas J.C.'s dedication to his work is undeniable and is substantiated with his commitment to public service. And now, therefore, I, Leroy D. Bennett, Mayor of the City of Fulton, on behalf of the City Council and the citizens of our community, extend our sincere and grateful appreciation to J.C. Miller for these many years of loyal service to this community. We wish to convey our heartfelt congratulations and best wishes to you and Dave for much success and happiness in the coming years. Thank you, J.C. Thank you.
Speech. It's your last chance.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
I bet we could at least come up with one or two questions about solid waste tonight, right?
Make him work just a little bit.
That extra day.
He's not gone yet. But anyway, we definitely appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a comment. I've interacted with J.C. Miller over the years in wearing different hats. As a citizen, as an employer, as working with different things. And I can tell you what you have in that proclamation speaks directly to what J.C. is. He always has the city in mind, but he has the citizen in mind, the business in mind. And there hasn't been anything that I've interacted with JC on that wasn't just a win-win in every direction. And that was very much appreciated over these years, JC. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are going to need your phone number, though.
Okay, very good. Let's move on to the consent agenda, which is an agenda that has several items on it that we are designed that we can approve all at once. And those items this evening include the approval of the city council minutes from May the 22nd, from the work session of June 7, and from the city council meeting of June 12. It also approves the director of administration report for May, and the acceptance of the following board and commission reports: planning and zoning, public utilities, historic preservation, and 2 meetings from the historic preservation.
Those no exceptions, I move we pass the consent agenda as listed.
Second.
Very good. Thank you. I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Does anyone have any item they'd like to remove to discuss, or is there any further discussion of the consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. The yeses have it. Thank you. We'll now look at the presentation and acceptance of the financial report for the month of May. Ms. Holtzlage with us this evening, and Kathy, thank you for leading us.
Okay. Sales tax were down 3% in the month of May, which is not unusual. It kind of tends to ebb and flow all year long. Probably the two biggest things were the cost of purchase power was up $300,000 in the electric department. That was due to the fact that the 69 line to Columbia was down for routine maintenance. So it hit us all in 1 month. We did have a credit in April, but the total cost, I think, was still up about $225, $230 for the 2 months combined. Administration encumbered $110,000 for new vehicles. We have embarked on a fleet replacement program this year, so we ordered all of the 4x2 pickup trucks at one time, in one fell swoop, off of the state contract. And I'd be glad to answer any other questions.
Are there any scheduled maintenances for things like the electric lines that we need to be prepared for next year, anything like that, that we,
I would have to defer.
do they, just curious if there's
I
any
don't know.
major,
Like a wholesale upgrade?
or just anything that, would take one of these major lines down for next year that we would want to budget for, be prepared for?
It's usually a short outage. This one was longer. There was work in Columbia on both stead substation, so we took advantage of that and changed about 14 poles. But doing so, we had to get power from other suppliers.
And
No,
I think,
I recognize this one, and just in the future, do we,
I think if I remember what Darryl said, this one was a perfect storm because we thought we could get power from this one. No, they're
Right.
down. We thought we could get power from somebody else. So
Yeah, Sykeston was also down. which
Yeah.
was
Oh,
really
Happened to
usually brought
I remember the
it back.
details you shared, it was,
But I've been here about 12 years. This is the longest one we've had.
Is it,
So they're usually a couple of days.
Yeah, It was a schedule, so at least it helped us out a little bit.
right.
Any other questions for Ms. Holslop? Very good, thank you. Do I have a motion for acceptance or approval?
Move to accept the financial statement and
Second.
Very good, thank you. I have a motion and a second to approve financial or accept the financial report. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying yes.
yes.
All those opposed, no. Yeses have it. Now move on to unfinished business, of which we have none listed. Unless council has something that's unfinished, we'll move on to item 11, which is new business. I believe Megan Pringer is with us this evening from the United Way, and they have a request for an event on September the 14th. Be here before we know it, won't it?
Yeah, I'm gearing up. Yes, the United Way has actually planned our annual campaign kickoff and United Way Day for the last 20 years. The last 2 years, we have requested for it to be down at the Memorial Park, and it has deemed to be very successful. So we are looking to have that same approval this year. The city has been great in helping us with just extra trash cans and also providing us the large grill to be able to grill because we barbecue that day. For some of our fundraising. And so I am here this evening for looking for approval again this year on September 14th. And you also provide me Wi-Fi access, just us because we do the radiothon. So I also have like a password, so just the Zimmer radio group can tap into, so we can be able to do live recording that day with the radio as well.
Very good. Anyone have any questions, Ms. Pringer?
I move we accept her proposal.
All in favor? Very good.
second.
Thank you. I have a motion to accept, second to accept or to approve the United Way function for September the 14th. Any further discussion of the motion?
Thank you.
Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no.
Thank you.
The yeses have it. Thank you, Ms. Pringer. Hope you have a good event. Okay, Kathy, you want to come back up and introduce our next representative?
I have the pleasure of introducing Heidi Chick, who is a partner at Williams Keepers. They did our audit this year. You should all have a copy of the CAFRA and the summary report. So Heidi's going to give you a brief presentation of the high points.
So I promise we're not going to go through the big, thick book tonight. What we are going to go through is the summary report. So if you have the blue spiral-bound reports in front of you, it should be the first report, and the first page should say summary report. So what we're going to do is just hit the highlights. I will tell you, if you have not had a chance to go through all the reports and you have questions, reach out to Kathy or Bill with those questions, or you can always reach out to me. But for right now, we're just going to go through the highlights.
Okay.
The city issues what's called a Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, or you hear the term CAFR, that's what it's referring to. It's really a sign of excellence in reporting because it's above and beyond what the city is required to do. When you look at that nice big thick book, the financial section is what's required, but the front part, there's an introductory section that has charts and a transmittal letter, that's extra. And what's really interesting at the back, and I saw the mayor looking at one of the charts in there, is the statistical section, and that's really interesting because it has 10 years trend data, so you can look and see 10 years of tax collections, you can look and see 10 years of expenses and different things like that. The intro section and that stat section are above and beyond what you're required to do. The CAFR is then submitted to an organization called Government Finance Officers Association. It goes through their review process. They do two things. Number one, they make sure that you've got all the required stuff there, both the normal required stuff and then their required stuff. But the second thing they do is they make sure it's readable, that if you're a citizen and you're not a CPA like I am, you can still read the report and understand the footnotes and get information out of there. So it goes through that review process. You got it for last year. You've had it for multiple years. I don't even know how long it's been. It's been a long
It's
time.
96.
I think it's 86. Is it 76?
86?
Long time.
96.
96, 86.
We didn't get one in 95 because we switched to the 18-year month budget.
Oh, okay. A long time.
Long time.
Again, excellence in reporting. We anticipate you're going to get it again for this one. So I just like to point that out because you only see this once a year, and it's one of the reasons this is so thick. The required part, the financial statement parts, there's our report in there, the auditor's opinion. We issue what's called an unmodified or clean opinion. What that means is everything is fairly stated in accordance with governmental accounting standards. It's the best opinion you can get. And really, bottom line, what that means is anyone can look at your financial statements and rely on both the numbers and the disclosures that are there. So whether you're a citizen, you're a state granting agency or a federal granting agency or a bond issuer or something like that, whoever looks at your reports can know that they can rely on them and make decisions about you. So that's really a good thing. We actually prepare the financial statements. It's what we do. We've got all the electronics set up. So we do prepare the financial statements, but the city goes through and reviews in detail and makes sure everything that's supposed to be there is there. So even though we prepare them, it's still ultimately the city's responsibility because it's coming from your transactions, your records, what you've authorized. So even though we prepare them, they are the city's responsibility. Part of that responsibility is have an internal control structure, both the design and the implementation, so that you can prepare those financial statements. When we audit the city, we don't obviously audit every check. We'd be here a long time. We don't look at every deposit. We go through what's called a risk assessment process. We look at, the balances, how much you have in the bank, how much inventory you have, things like that. We look at your transaction cycles. And we do look at that internal control structure. We look at who does what, and then we sit back and say, okay, if something were going to go wrong, where would it go wrong, or where are the big numbers at? And that's really where we focus our time. So we do a risk assessment process in order to make sure that we're efficient but still effective in what we're doing. And in the end, we think we do enough work to give that clean opinion. As part of that process, we look at the accounting policies, we look at the estimates, different things that go into the production of the financial statements just to make sure everything makes sense and is reasonable. Just a reminder, because you only see these once a year, the second reason it's so thick is there's actually 2 entire sets of financial statements in here. So I'd encourage you, when you look at the CAFR, open the table of contents. That'll kind of keep you on track on what you're looking at. The one set you only see once a year, it's called government-wide or entity-wide. It puts all of the funds of the city together in one spot. It includes all your capital assets. It includes all your long-term debt, all your long-term liabilities. It's the one place where you're the closest to the for-profit world, for lack of a better term. So, if you look at a manufacturer or a construction company, this is going to be the set of financial statements where you're the closest to them. It includes all the financial activity, financial balances there. The rest of the statements you're used to seeing, they're fund financial statements. They're broken into two sets. One's called governmental. Those are the tax-supported type of funds. And the other are enterprise funds where they're more supported by user fees, primarily the utilities. So when you look at that again, look at the chart of accounts. It'll help keep you straight on what you're looking at because there's a lot of pages and a lot of numbers in there. We do refer to the footnotes. They are an integral part of the financial statements. We think you can't tell everything you need to know by just looking at the numbers. So when you look at the footnotes, I encourage you to read through those as well. Note 1 just talks about your accounting policies, how things get recorded, just different information. And the rest are just disclosures about your investments, your receivables, your debt. So there's really a lot of good information in there to really expand what you see in those numbers. And here we do have 3 years of data, just very, very high level. You're not going to get a lot from here, but it's kind of interesting to see 3 years of data right there. If you actually look in the CAFR, there's a section called Management's Discussion and Analysis. This is where Kathy has gone in and compared this year to last year and hit the highlights at both the entity-wide level and then at the fund financial statements. So it's the plain English story of what went on in the city during 2017. So if you look at nothing else, you do want to look at that section. That's really always going to cover on the actual CAFR before we touch the other reports, unless anyone has any questions on the financial statements. At the end of the financial statements, there's a section called Single Audit. Any entity that receives and spends more than $750,000 in federal funds, whether it's a direct grant or it's passed through the state, they're required to have something called a single audit. It puts a lot of extra requirements on us as your auditor, but it also puts a lot of requirements on you as the entity spending the money. And so we go and do extra procedures. The government tells us what to do. At the end of the year, you spent about $5.3 million in federal funds, things that originated with the federal government. Most of that was in the grants for Clean Water State Revolving Fund. So there is a schedule in there that shows you where you got your federal funds. It adds 2 reports to your CAFR. One is a report on internal control and compliance over financial reporting, and the second is on internal control and compliance over federal programs. Both of those are clean reports, so you can look at those. Any questions on a single audit, what that means? It's nice to get the money, but it comes with a few tags along with it, so both for us and for you. The next report I was going to cover is the auditor's communication letter. It's pretty much boilerplate, so I'm just going to hit the highlights. You can read through it. It's pretty consistent with last year. There were no transactions that we looked at that we thought were unusual, didn't have support for them that just were out of the ordinary. There's no change in accounting policies or anything, so this year's financial statements are consistent with last year when you look at the footnotes and things like that. There is some information on some new standards that are going to be effective in the future for the city. We just kind of tell you that they're coming, and then we'll work with Kathy to get them implemented. There is one I want to point out because I'm not sure where things will go, but the city is working on some policies. Remember I talked about the federal grants, and they come with some requirements along with them. They've really upped some of the requirements, particularly related to procurement. So there's going to be some things the city is going to have to put into place, some policies and some procedures and things like that to comply with that. Kathy's gone to training. We've given her some information, so she's working on that. So that'll be something that's in effect in 18. Obviously, we look at the financial statements. Like I said, it's a clean opinion. We think they're all appropriate. All the disclosures that need to be there are there. The biggest disclosures are probably related to debt and your capital assets because that's where the big dollars are. We do look at estimates just to make sure they make sense. It's kind of that thing, a point in time. Whenever you do anything at a point in time, things like cash in the bank, but other things like how long your assets are going to last, your pension liability, how much you're going to collect your receivables, that's an estimate. So we look at those to make sure they make sense. We didn't propose any adjustments. The records were in good order. And really the best thing to report is everybody's fully cooperative with us throughout the process. The burden falls on Kathy, but then also her staff, because we talked to a lot of people. We asked for a lot of things. They have to pull documents, answer our questions. So I think the audit goes very smoothly, and this year was no exception. So we do appreciate that cooperation. Any questions on that report at all? Anything on the audit process?
How many hours do you have in it?
You don't see us the whole time, so I can't tell you off the top of my head how many hours. We do what's called planning before we come out. We get some information. We come out for a little bit. We look at internal control, read minutes, talk to the mayor, talk to a lot of different people. When we're out in the field work, I think we had 3 people out all week. Four. So there's time before the 4 staff, the entire time out in the week for 1 full week, and then when we go back in the office is when we wrap up. Yeah. It takes a while to get those together. So you see us probably a third of the time, if I had to guess, of what it takes to do it.
The big question is, how many hours do you put in it?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure it's a lot.
Kathy?
I'm sure it's a lot.
2,080.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure.
The
All year
last-
long.
The last report's the management letter. I talked about that risk assessment process and gaining an understanding of internal control. As part of that, we make observations about the design of your internal control and then implementation. So if we see things that come up in either one of those categories, we make a list of them, and at the end, we sit back and say, how big a deal are these? The most serious is called a material weakness. What that means is something could happen, and if it did, it could cause your financial statements to be materially misleading, and we did not identify any of those. So that's a really good thing. I think it's a positive reflection of the controls that the city has in place. So there's really nothing that we're required to report to you. We still, for governments, I think it's nice to get the letter that's clean and says no material weaknesses, so we go, even though we technically don't have to do it, we go ahead and issue it just so that you know. So that's really what I was going to cover at a very high level. Again, if you got any questions later, reach out to Kathy or Bill, and you can always reach out to me as well if you prefer.
I have a question. I don't know, I think it's more towards the city and to Kathy.
Okay.
But in your report in the summer, you talked about the new procurement standards for 2018. And the way you were talking, it sounded like we're trying to figure them out and learn what they are. Are we following them now, or, so we've revised our procedures already to conform to these new standards. Oh, okay. But the documentation part, we're okay with? I mean, everybody knows what they need to be doing. Okay.
I think certain pieces that you're going to have to, like the contracts, and there's certain pieces that you still have time to fix. As far as actually going out and spending the money, I think you're probably good there. But there's some other written things that they're requiring that are I think the city just needs to look at those as well. But Kathy's got the information and is working on those.
Okay, thank you.
So, any other questions? Yeah. Otherwise, we appreciate the opportunity to do the audit, and like I said, if you have any questions, just let us know. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I'd like to just add, if you haven't looked through the audit to the statistical section, I think I find it very information. A lot of information there are very informative, not only about the city but also about the county, and it gives you a lot of trends of how we're doing and so forth. So, anyway, I suggest that you put a little time at that. If nothing else, it's a good way to get you to go to bed. Okay.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I did about one.
Okay, let's move on to the 2018 budget. This is a
Capital budget.
document, capital budget, document that the mayor is required to present to you, and it covers 3 years. It just gives you an idea of where the department heads are thinking of what their future expenditures might be and where they are in particular next year. And typically it really scares me, but after we look through it, normally I also know there's got to be a lot of massage into it too, before it all gets done. So anyway, if it was given to you, it really does not require any action at this meeting. But if you have some questions, we'll be glad to address those for you, if we can, or find you the answer. Okay, very good. Thank you. We'll move on to the September and December meeting dates. You want to leave that one?
Yes, that would be fine. Basically, each year we tend to run into a couple conflicts. One of those is September. We have the MML conference. This year, we don't really need to change our schedule. Fortunately, MML moved their meeting up 1 week, so we should be fine to still have our standard meetings of the second and fourth week. But also historically in December, annually, we only have one meeting. Just with the holidays and everything else going on, we tend to go for the third week of December, which looks like it would be the 18th. There'd be no work session, so we would go over kind of what we do in our second meeting of the month. But in order to set that date and make it official, we have to do that by a motion from the city council.
When you want that motion?
I would like it as soon as possible.
So I make a motion, we meet on December 18th
That sounds
as a
great.
normal meeting, and that's the only meeting that month.
That
I will
works.
second it.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second that
Thank you.
in December we will have one meeting, and that will be on the 18th.
That works.
All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. Thank you. The yeses have it. We'll now move on to item 12, which has it's a time for those of you who have concerns that are not on the agenda to bring them forward and our topics of the discussion, and we'll try to address them or at least consider them for future meetings. So I'll just go, if you have a item that you'd like to be recognized so you can discuss, please signify by raising your hand.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Mayor?
Okay, let's start with Jeff. He was quickest.
That's fine. No problem.
First one's just a
And then we'll
huge,
just go down the line, okay?
That'll work.
just a huge thank you to all the city workers and all the city departments that assisted with the street fair this past weekend. There was a lot of work to prepare for that, a lot of work during and then afterward. We had a very good, I felt like we had a really good presence of city employees out there throughout the street fair, both as patrons and workers, and it was just a really good showing for the city. Second is kind of just a comment for us to prepare for. We're going to be doing a lot of street work with MoDOT. There's a lot of big projects coming from stem to stern this year with all the MoDOT projects and everything else. And these projects are they're going out into the community, and we're advertising them as give us a year and this place is really going to look nice. We're making all these preparations, we're doing all these things as a city, and then MoDOT's going to come in and do an excellent job. We know they will, but we just need to make sure that when we're done, it is something to be proud of, and that we have done everything we can to prepare for it. And the comments is always, yeah, it's going to look great for 3 weeks, and then we're going to have to tear something up. And yeah, that's going to happen. It will happen. It always happens. But we just need to be ready, or not need to be ready. We just need to make sure that what we're putting forth out there is going to be our best for the citizens.
Jeff, are you thinking we need to do a parade?
I think we need to do a parade. I think we ought to walk this thing stem to stern when it's all
Get
clean.
the high school band to come marching down the middle of the street.
All the way down.
All the way down.
All the way down.
How about a ribbon cutting?
There you go. The ribbon cut for the
I just
streets.
know that the citizens want to have good streets, and we're going to give them some good streets. Let's just make sure they're the best that we can possibly give them.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Very good. Yep.
Yes, Mary?
Yes, I'd like to request a meeting, maybe a retreat, for the budget. I'd like to get together and look the budget over with the council, department heads, if we would want to.
Okay. You're talking about the operational budget
Yes,
for 19?
Yes, I would really like to do that. And prior to the end of August, if it's possible.
It probably won't be, that's probably not possible.
Not possible, maybe in September then. Maybe I would like to request
End of
some type of
September,
retreat.
the big, in the
On the
budget,
big one.
in the life of the budget creation, there's a big difference between the end of August and the end of September.
Okay.
I think probably the end of September, right, Robert?
Think that would be,
I think we can,
We don't have
do
to have
that?
it finished. We just,
oh no, just enough to,
Just-
pull it all done. I'd
nothing
appreciate
else,
that.
we could take the capital budget.
Right.
Spend a good time on it.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you. Mhm. Thank you.
Okay, very good, thank you. And
Yes.
Ballard?
Business 54 South and Collier Lane. Right now, it's kind of difficult to get on Business 54. We've got this Willow Creek subdivision going in. I think I saw like 110 houses. It's going to be really difficult to get on Business 54. Can we get a stoplight put in? I know it's MoDOT's responsibility, but I think we have to at least start the process. And I would prefer to start the process before the subdivision's built.
You do well, but as we know, MoDOT is more reactive rather than proactive. But go ahead, Bill.
Kyle will gladly contact MoDOT and make the request. I'm going to preface that though with, even when Walmart was down on the south end, and there was a lot of traffic going to and leaving Walmart. The traffic through that intersection, it's referred to as a warrant. It's like the criteria to justify a stoplight. That intersection, it needs to meet the criteria. I believe it's like 8 hours out of the day, X number of cars over doesn't have to be 8 continuous hours, but I don't think we ever met the criteria of even 1 hour of the day at that intersection to justify a stoplight. But that's been many years ago. Maybe Kyle can contact MoDOT and kind of investigate the process and just see how many cars a day are going through that intersection now. And okay.
Yeah, that would be fine. And it's better, I think it's better to start it early. Sure. Now, obviously, we won't have any data from the Willow Creek subdivision.
No.
But, I mean, we could probably anticipate what it's going to be. I don't know. I don't know what the process is, but
Kyle,
I'd like to get it started.
Kyle will investigate.
Okay, that's what I appreciate.
But if
Thank
you,
you.
and just a thought, if you do that there, are you gonna do one at Tennyson Road too? Because when the subdivision's done, it's going all the way through
Kyle
to
will
Tennyson,
investigate the
right? You know what I'm
requirements for
saying?
stoplights.
I don't,
Is it going to Tennyson, or is
Oh,
it
yeah.
going to the
Eventually-
shopping center?
yeah, it's going to.
Comes all the way
Eventually,
Eventually,
it'll all the way
it'll
down to
go to
Comes to
Tennyson.
Tennyson. It meets Tennyson.
Okay.
It will. All the way through.
Yeah, because there's
you
no
have anything
stoplights on Business 54 South right now.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do you have anything, Wayne?
Good
Okay,
point.
thank you. Let's go on this side.
I'm good.
I got a question.
Sure.
How come we're not voting on ordinance 1502 tonight?
It has to go back to planning and zoning.
For what reason?
I'm sorry?
For what reason?
Oh,
That's their job.
our ordinance requires us to get a recommendation from them. And primarily for that reason is that if they give us a negative recommendation, then it takes 2/3 of the council to pass it. So we'll have to, okay.
Courtney
I'll
says.
not explain it, let Courtney explain it.
The ordinance-
Basically, the ordinance requires that there needs to be a recommendation one way or another from the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Well, we've taken other votes that we've had stuff out to committees and didn't get a recommendation back. Were we
The ordinance is
wrong
specific on
then?
it. No, not necessarily. The ordinance is specific on this particular, in this particular case. And that's all I can tell you. The rest of them are normally just recommendations, so, or not. So.
The ordinance is very specific that the planning and zoning either has to say yes or no.
Okay? Very good.
So then I have a follow-up question then. So it does take a 2/3 vote?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so, but,
But
okay.
we've been consulting with the attorney over this. We will schedule another planning and zoning meeting. There will not be another planning and zoning hearing. We've already conducted the hearing.
Right.
And then after the planning and zoning meeting, and they take a vote, yes or no, it will come back to the city council.
Yes.
The city council will conduct another public hearing before they do any reads of the ordinance.
Okay?
Yep.
Sure.
And I've got one other thing.
Sure.
I also talked to the This afternoon late, I called the Kansas City Housing Authority, and there's still no scheduled meeting for them to make a decision on the tax abatement for that project, and still no meeting scheduled for that project.
Oh, okay. You're talking about MHDC, Missouri Housing Development Commission?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Anything else?
No, I don't have anything.
Thank you. Your turn, Richard.
On the Mary wanting a retreat from back 6 months ago when we got in discussion about payroll, can we have a conversation, if that give you time for, make a decision so it don't come up again how they want to do payroll, since some council members want to look at a different method?
I'd like to see that.
Okay. You want to discuss pay raises? Is that what you said? I'm sorry.
No, how we're doing it.
How we're doing it?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
currently doing it.
Sure.
Okay.
We can have that.
Not raise, it's just the method of what we're using is what I think. Wasn't that, Mary, what we was talking about?
Pardon me?
Wasn't that what we was talking about, the method?
Yes, that would be, yes, if we could include that also,
Yeah.
yes.
And-
Information on our pay.
And I'll also elaborate a little bit that if you have any other topic that you'd like to have at the retreat other than
That'd be great.
budget, we could possibly work that in. So let me know, and we'll be working on the agenda between now and September.
And my second one was, what was our discussion from the last council meeting about the code enforcement officer's new program? We was waiting for the ordinance, or was gonna?
Oh, I know what you're talking about, demolition of homes.
Yeah, it was in.
Yeah, where are we with that?
Well, he's prepared to talk to about it tonight,
Oh, good.
Okay.
if you're interested.
You're invited to
I'm
come
very
forward.
interested. I wanna know what I couldn't
Yes.
remember what we decided.
We send an email out to all of you with the different options. If anybody didn't get it, I have copies.
Yeah, I know.
Could I have a copy? I printed it and left it on my printer.
I didn't get one. So I'm glad you knocked it out, you know, because you older than me.
That's normal, happens all the time. Blank, blank, blank. It's super glue.
Oh, what's your name tag?
Good idea, Billy.
I trust you.
I mean, we'll take one. Thank you, Dave.
Oh, since you got him, I'll take it.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like that.
All right, and in these options, one is just the ordinance, just following our ordinance we passed. And option 2 is the one I explained last meeting about the city asking for permission and then just taking on all the costs of the demolition.
All right.
Option 3 is the option that Moberly uses. And they basically contact the property owner, asking them to, we're going to condemn the building, and asking them to deed the property over to the city. And then we will offer it to contractors. If a contractor is willing to take on the lot and build a property on it, within 12 months, we'll give them the property. And once they do that, then we will start collecting the money back from the demolition through the taxes and utilities. And then option 4 is just an option we come up with, giving the property owner another option to put up part of the money. Since we'll have limited funds, if they want to get their house taken down, they can put up more of the demolition cost to get their house moved up on the list.
Yeah, that's good.
But, and with this, we're thinking of sending the letter out and giving the property owner maybe options of what to do. And if we run into a property owner that doesn't want to take one of our options, we'll use the unsafe ordinance.
Yep.
Does that clarify it, Steve?
Yeah.
Is the council good with these scenarios?
So are we looking, are we being asked to pick an option, or?
No.
You could.
You could, but we could give the property owner both of the options. You know, the third option would be just to follow our ordinance
Yeah.
and put a tax bill on the property.
I mean, I think the one question that we kind of keep coming back to is, does the city want to own a vacant piece of property? Part of me says, yeah, we do. And part of me says, no, I'm not too crazy about that. Do we want, Ballard, you own one of these houses?
Right.
One option is for you just to sign it, the house and the property over to the city, and we take it down. The city then owns a lot, and we hopefully find a contractor that will build on it.
Okay.
The other is, we take it down, possibly some cost to you, probably not any cost to you, and you own a vacant lot someplace in town that you could then go sell or market or just keep as additional green space next to the house you already live in next door.
Okay.
If we've got a house that is dilapidated, that meets the criteria,
Well,
the owners let it go this way. I don't see him fixing it up. Otherwise, he should have already done it.
Right.
So I don't see option 2 and option 4, which says get his permission. We're past that.
But
Now, to me, I would say, okay, this piece of property meets I'm going to say dilapidated, for a better word, dilapidated condition. So, owner, you have a choice. Fix the property now, or we're going to take it from you and own the property and have somebody else fix it.
Well, I don't think we have that right
no.
to take it.
That's what option 3 is.
If they sign it over to us voluntarily, I don't want this house, I don't want the yard.
They don't want to
I
pay for demolition.
haven't even been in Fulton in 14 years. I haven't seen it. Take it. I want to quit paying taxes on it and having to quit mowing the yard. Take the house, take the property. I want to be done with it.
Then we can take it.
Okay? We've kind of joked that the ordinance that we have, that if we went through the process, we're calling that kind of the unhappy process. But if you either want to sign it over to us and give us the property, or sign a piece of paper that gives us permission to do the demolition, that's the happy, easier way. Granted,
Yeah, to me, if you've got a property owner that's got a dilapidated house,
Right.
he's essentially saying, city, go ahead, take it down. I like that, and then I'll build it back up, and I got a nice piece of property.
okay,
But-
which would thrill me. And then over time, that new house is going to be paying property taxes and going to be using utilities and going to be buying groceries and that house is going to generate sales tax. Over time, the city would get their money back.
But I'm looking at the smallest impact to the city, both in terms of our manpower that would have to take the house down versus our liability for cost. So I could just leave it there as an empty lot. You know, it's going to have a tax lien, I would assume, on it.
But
Yeah.
even the city's done numerous tax liens. Just because you put a tax lien doesn't mean you get your money.
Exactly,
Amen.
yes.
So, I mean, I think anyone that has the illusion that the city's going to get its money back on the demolition program is
Right, which is more why I like option 3, where we get a contractor to take the property and demo the house and rebuild it.
What
Or we
I
take the
think-
property and sell
Yeah, but let's
Wayne.
look
it
at.
for the demolition cost.
Look at Wayne.
On option 3, if you added up, if we took that property that they agreed to turn over to the city so they won't have to pay taxes, and you can't get just don't find somebody that particularly interested in fooling with it, then we could put a for sale sign on it and sell it for the cost that we have in for demo.
And if that's the direction the city council would like to go, we have a list of 80.
80, probably.
Dennis, in the next 2 weeks, could get 80 letters out making offers. Do you want to give us your property? Yeah, well,
No, we can't.
we got to go
do
through a
that.
title search.
Yeah, we got to.
We got to do a title search.
So we better start with 4.
A little bit more than, yeah.
Well, let's start with a
Oh, come
smaller
on,
number.
80.
I don't
But if that's the direction the city council would like to go, Dennis could begin the process of the property, getting the title search done, and getting letters out to see who wants to give their property to the city.
Okay.
Well, we've
I've
got
got another
9,
thought
was
here.
it 8 or 9 properties that you brought to us before?
4. We have 4 of
There
them.
were
One of
4.
them, we're gonna have to take off and find another one, because it's gonna be a trouble at getting the
The
title.
title search is
Okay.
is already shown.
So we've got 3.
3, no, I can put another one on there.
We've
pretty
got,
easy.
but right now we
Oh, I
have 3 that you've done a title search
No.
on, you've done everything you need
No,
to
no,
do.
no, we
Wayne
haven't
has-
started
We
yet.
haven't done it.
Wayne has-
We're kinda waiting on
Three people.
an option to go with.
I don't know
Okay.
why we should just give the property owner one choice. We've got 4 different options here. They ought to be looking at this and saying, I want option 2. At least it's giving more variety of what we can do. So we don't have to stick to, what I'm saying is we don't need to stick to one option that we voted on or whatever. Give them a choice of all 4 options, and whichever one works for them, that's why we go, and we write it up that way.
Well, but the only thing that I think is if you put it to the tax bill, you're not gonna get the, I mean, if they haven't had the money to do anything to the property, the tax bill is irrelevant anyway. So that's why I think, and what I did was I went through and numbered what my options were. So 3 was number 1, 2 was number 2, 4 was number 3. Excuse me, 3 was number 4, and
Wait a
4
minute.
was number 1.
You just,
You just moved them around.
Yeah, what my thought was is how to lay them out. And the only thing about option 2, I think it should be added, we should add some kind of timeline in there for them. What that,
Our ordinance does have time, yeah.
what that time is for option 2.
Yeah, you got a timeline on 1 that says if the contractor takes it, he's got to do something in,
On 3,
what was it,
On
12
3.
months?
on number 3.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that ought to be added to number 1 if we decide to go with it.
Well, number
With-
1 is just
With the ones
following.
of 2 options to give them, we still need a timeline.
Number 1's the ordinance, so you're basically, we already have that all set. We've got the ordinance passed and so on. So isn't basically number 1, go into the ordinance and do, okay.
Yeah, number 1 is just following the ordinance, putting a
Right.
tax bill on it. Number 2 is what we had discussed at the last meeting of us covering all the costs and just turning the lot back over to the owner.
Yeah.
And then number 3 is we're asking for them to just give us the lot, deed us the lot. And then we'll take it down, and then we'll find a contractor that's interested in building.
Buys it, yeah.
That's why I
Pretty
like
simple.
number 3.
And we have contacted one local contractor and asked them about it, and they seemed to be interested. Said they'd talk it over and get back with us.
Sure.
I'm kind of leaning towards option 3, but I kind of like Wayne's suggestion to maybe have another option.
Well, and we have one already with the ordinance it's in, correct?
Option,
The ordinance is,
you got 4 choices. Which one fits this particular owner?
that's right,
If number 1 fits him, he goes that way. If number 3 fits him, you go that way.
correct.
That way, there's more variety.
Gives them an option, sure.
You
I
can
mean,
use all 4
I
of
like
them
it.
for a choice.
4 is the same as option 2. We're just asking the homeowner with limited funds to get their house pushed up on the list. They can put up part of the
To
money.
guarantee theirs comes down before we run out of
I
money.
mean,
Well,
at some point, we'll run out of money.
if you
and-
have an owner out there that you tear it down and you give them, you give it back to them, it's gonna sit there, and then we're gonna have Dennis go out there and give them a thing, it's time to mow your yard.
Oh, yeah, that's a fun thing. too.
That's the reason I think it needs a timeline on it.
Well, if and you are exactly right if it's one of these homeowners that hasn't been in Fulton in 14 years.
Absolutely.
course.
He's still not gonna care about the property.
That's exactly right.
Which hopefully that homeowner will take number 3 option and just deed us the
And
property.
deed is, exactly. Then we
That's the
take-
reason I don't think you need to leave all 4 on there and give them too much to pick from, but you're gonna be right back where you're at. And like he said, you're gonna be calling every month, but cut the grass.
On option number 4, does that become an accounting nightmare, Kathy, for you?
She haven't.
It'd just be them writing a check to secure a spot on the list.
Yeah.
I really don't like the one where they can buy in.
I don't care for
I
that.
think that's allowing people with means to gain influence, and you're setting it up for,
Okay.
to get some offset.
Very
However, I think what we need to do here is keep in mind what our total objective is. Our objective is to get these turned over not only get rid of the eyesores, but to get them turned over to where it can be built back. So I think regardless of what we do, we need to tie whoever agrees, whether they do it voluntarily or whether we take it down, somehow that agreement is with that homeowner within 12 months, that property has either been sold or there's a new facility being built back on.
Right.
I mean, that's our objective right there.
That's right.
So I think that's where we've got to design it.
I'm hearing number 3.
Number 3, and then if they don't want to deed us the property, we can take it down with number 1. I mean, most of them are going to be pretty easy to condemn.
And there's more houses than we have money, so
Always.
at some point in time, we will be back to address these issues again.
Sure.
But at least to give Dennis and his department some direction on what do you want to try for the next 6 months?
Do we have current ordinance authority to do all the pieces of option 3 right now, or do we need to draft something?
We'd have to adopt.
We'll have to develop a contract.
Number 3.
Right. And Riley, they're sending us the forms right now
Tom,
for
is
the unsafe ordinance, all the
Yeah, 'cause
forms
it's all
we are to
written.
use, the letters and everything.
Okay.
But
good.
do we need to vote on any type of ordinance
No.
around option 3? Do we have,
Let us get on down the path
Not
and
tonight.
see
I
where
don't
we
think.
are.
I think we're not
Okay.
quite
So
there.
I'm hearing the council wanting
We'll
Dennis to
come back.
proceed with number, let's have a motion on that. Have Dennis proceed with option 3. Because I tell you one thing that's gonna justify kind of which houses we look at first. It's gonna be that title search.
Oh, I'm sure.
A lot of these houses are gonna have a really
Mass.
obscure title. And Boyd and Boyd or the title company, they're gonna find it very difficult to come up with a list of every owner and to be able to get every owner.
Bringing that up to date gets very
It's not
expensive.
gonna happen.
It gets very expensive to do that.
Mm-hmm. Now Riley did say there's a way to take title by publishing in the paper, going through a
Okay.
certain number, another set of criteria and another set of hurdles
No
to
direct.
be able to get it.
You might find that Jesse
We-
James on
Like
some-
Yeah, you're saying going
One
after,
house
you're saying go after the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just to make a dent.
Let's
right.
get started. Right. I agree.
So I make a motion that we use option 3 with a fallback of option 1 if necessary. Is that
Perfect.
sufficient?
That gets us rolling,
Worded very good.
Who was the
gets us
second?
going.
Jeff?
Okay, thank you.
Very good. I have a motion in the section.
Thanks, Dennis.
Second, go with option 3.
Uh-oh.
With the backup of option 1, it's now open for discussion.
Okay, on number 3, does it have a timeline in there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
Within
sort of.
12 months.
12 months.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll see it.
Oh, and then Dennis and I got in a big discussion on, so what's the definition of a building or housing within 12 months? Is that a footing? Is that a roof? Is that in the dry? Is
Move
that-
in.
I would
that-
say
Put in
occupancy
there, move
permit.
in.
Occupancy, the occupancy.
Yeah.
There you go. Very good.
Says residential dwelling. I'm
Very
sure
good.
that's
Like the
definition.
Robert, can you build a house in
Moved
12
in.
months?
Yes.
Well, he might not have a
Oh,
renter,
yeah.
but it's available to move in,
There you
so
go.
that's
You
his
can.
problem.
You can build a house in 4 months.
Well, that guy,
So-
he
Weather
had
proof.
many houses.
So,
can have a
Okay.
tiny
Bill,
house.
I would assume it's the occupancy permit
Several
to sign.
Okay,
We don't have
That's just my,
I just think that's pretty quick, but.
when they get the occupancy.
Very good. Let's go ahead and make a decision here, and then we can
can
continue
modify.
If
on
they
how.
got it in the dry, I'm pretty happy.
okay.
I
I'll
just
call
really
for the
think that-
question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no.
No.
Yeses have it. Thank you.
Was that a no,
That was a
Councilman
no.
Braun? Okay.
Very good.
Who said
We've been at this about an hour. Does anybody need a break?
Yes,
I was trying to ask another question.
Did you say yes?
yes.
Okay. Let's take a 5-minute break and we'll come back.
so I'm doing it.
All right.
Nice having a picture.
Every other day.
Council be now back in session, please. We'll continue on with ordinances, and we'll have first reading. Bill number 1507 is an ordinance that has to do with authorizing mayors to execute some agreement with the MoDOT over some property along Business 54. Councilwoman Reclue, would you please present bill number 1507 by title only?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, sure will. Bill number 1507, an ordinance authorizing the mayor, on behalf of the city of Fulton, Missouri, to sign all necessary documents in relating to the Missouri Highway and Transportation Commission Road Relinquishment Agreement regarding the U.S. Business 54 Highway improvement projects and establish an effective date. I make a motion that bill number 1507 be presented at our next scheduled meeting.
Second.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you. I have a motion and second to advance bill number 1507. Is there any discussion or questions on this ordinance?
Yes.
We'll listen to Kyle first, and then we'll whip your questions on it.
This is a piece of Business 54 that is about the middle of Ovid Bell Press to the bridge, right near 13th Street. It does not include the bridge. The reason why we're wanting to do this is to accommodate utilities that we've already put in conduit for and everything for the Business 54 job. If we did it in MoDOT's way, we would have had to bore all those in, and if anybody, numerous pieces of conduit that had to go in, and it would have made it pretty almost impossible to do otherwise. So this way, if taking over this little section, we could open cut and dig those in just like we did and put them in. So that's why. It's
Okay.
I'm going to say,
It said 100 to several hundred feet.
Not many, yeah.
it's
Yeah.
It says
it's
what?
essentially, for my purposes, about 300 foot, a little over 300 foot.
300 to 400.
It's a football field.
It's really for what we maintain, maintenance purposes. There's really not much of an effect here. I mean,
It'll be fully upgraded. We are not taking the bridge.
Right.
No, we
It's
don't.
just-
and we only
But-
take this over after the project's done too. So
Okay, well, that was kind of, my question though was, we just approved a whole bunch of money
300,000.
to refurbish Business 54. We've authorized and let the contract. MoDOT has authorized the contract, I think, for their portion of it. And now it sounds like we're moving portions of the responsibility line. Is that affecting the contracts and the amount of money that we've authorized to repair 54?
no,
Or to
there'll be no effect to the existing to what's already been agreed upon. This only takes effect after the project
Okay.
is over.
Okay, yeah, the effective date of the agreement will be upon completion of the project.
Right.
Or-
Okay, so MoDOT is letting us go ahead and run the underground utilities on their property with the understanding that we will take over the responsibility of that property after all of Business 54, the section that we're working on, has been upgraded or finished or repaired or whatever,
Correct.
however you want to call it.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Okay, very good.
Thanks,
If there's
Kyle.
not any additional questions, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of advancing Bill 1507, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. Very good, yeses have it, bill advances. Bill number 1508 is a bill that has to do with accepting a provision out of the 2015 International Building Code, of which we had quite a discussion last meeting. And so at this time, Councilman Vaughn, if you'd please present 1508 by title only.
Bill number 1508, an ordinance amending section 1833, amendments Fulton City Code by incorporating an additional exception to the 2015 International Building Code and establishing an effective date. I make a motion to adopt Bill 1508 for a second reading at this scheduled meeting.
So really quickly, that was second reading at this meeting or at the next meeting? The next meeting, okay.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Very good.
Second. Okay.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second to advance bill number 1508, second reading next meeting. Any further discussion of that motion?
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Somebody said yes down there? I went first.
Go
on that.
ahead.
Okay. Well, actually, there are two questions. From what I remember of the last meeting, we were talking about taking the 2015 building code and backing all the way up to the last building code we approved to 2006. The way this reads, it sounds like we're just taking a small section, like the ambulance building, and saying it doesn't need to conform to the current building code, it's just, it'll conform to 2006.
You are correct on both parts.
Okay?
But the previous code did not have a section that pertained to public safety building storm shelters.
Correct.
So there is nothing to back up to. So we're just eliminating that as an additional requirement on public safety storm shelters.
So we're eliminating essentially the ICC 500 discussion in the 2015 code, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Correct.
In that section, in 423.
Okay.
It will not apply.
And that was my question. You were going to talk to the attorneys
And we talked to the,
and see if that was really acceptable to do.
it is, and also at the last meeting, you asked for me to contact about if we would be taking on any additional liability. And the murmur letter is attached.
Yeah, I see murmur.
Saying that we do not have any additional liability by
Insurance, yeah.
eliminating this as a standard.
Okay.
other-
No. I guess back in November is when we upgraded to the 2015 code, so I really don't know what all the discussions were and the underlying why, correct? But, I mean, a lot of this, I would think, is from Joplin and Oklahoma City.
Yes,
This also deals with schools.
yes.
The industries, the experts say, in this area, we need this structure. I'm just hesitant to say, nah, we don't really need it. We'll we'll put in, we understand it's expensive, but because of that, we're not going to do it. That's just, they changed the building code on shelters for a reason. I really couldn't find a reason, but I assume it's from Joplin and Oklahoma City.
It is.
Yeah.
But what they're requesting is, it's not out of the ordinary. I mean, Jeff City did the same thing. They didn't completely take it out. They just lowered the limits. So instead of 250 mile an hour winds, it's 200 mile an hour winds. So that lowers the restrictions and the standards they have to meet.
Each municipality can change or alter the code to fit its needs.
I
Or what they see as
understand
appropriate.
we can do that. We have the authority to do that. But I have a little bit of structural engineering experience. Nowhere near the people that built this code.
What's that mean?
And I'm hesitant to say that we're smarter than they are. So and the other thing I'm looking at is, as Fulton grows, we're going to need more schools. So are we gonna build more schools out of cinder block like we used to, or are we gonna build storm shelters for them? You know, that's, because we're taking away that requirement too. It's,
Well,
I'm not comfortable with this.
Okay. I can say there has been discussion in our area about the 250 mile an hour wind speed. You know, if you think of Oklahoma City, and even if you stretch that bubble over to Joplin area, beyond that, those wind speeds have not been seen here.
Well,
There is no history of those wind speeds in this area.
but somehow, somebody came up with a wind speed map
Yep.
that shows Oklahoma and Missouri and parts of Iowa and Illinois
They came
as
up
under
with a
this
code
200.
map that stretched it. But the folks that have researched this and eliminated this section before us have also done the research to find that those wind speeds have never been seen here. Not that they won't, not that they couldn't, but they never have in the history of collecting wind
Well,
speeds.
And
And
so
I
so
understand-
it's in my opinion, it's an extreme code. It was written at a time when there were many examples, but when you go back and you look at the data and you look at reality, and that's what some of the other cities and municipalities have done, it wasn't realistic.
I hear you.
Okay,
They had a reason.
very good.
I don't know what that is.
Thank you.
I couldn't find it.
I think you
So-
had a young engineer sitting right there that had balls about that size and said, this is what I want to build. So we're going to sit here and vote to do it the other way, and everybody here agrees with it. So let's get the.
No.
Yeah, well, it's everybody but you.
So my only question is, going forward, then any new structure that would come up would fall back to what we're amending right now, or just this one structure?
No,
No, it would be
we're
all-
taking it out completely.
This would be
This
complete.
section,
would go-
this
it would
section
go-
will be gone
Correct.
of what we adopted.
So if
Yes.
schools are being
And
built,
and
so
that
on,
was
then
the
it will be
discussion.
there.
This isn't about one particular building
Right.
project.
Yeah,
This
that's
is-
correct.
We are taking
Get away from everything.
423 out completely.
Yes.
But what they did describe to us in their building, they felt was very sufficient.
Yeah, they're still going to put a storm shelter in. It just will not meet ICC 500 standards.
And our structural engineers and architects are confident that it will handle any type of tornado that's going to happen, likely to happen here, and it'll meet all the standards of the code.
I'm thinking if you see 200 or 250 mile an hour winds, is there really that much huge difference? That's moving along anyway.
I mean, yeah, an F5 tornado is 180 mile an hour.
Well, I mean, I
That'll lift you
understand.
up off the ground.
If we don't pass this and you build your ambulance building with the storm shelter and we get a 200 mile an hour wind coming through, then you're going to have your storm shelter there. You'll have no ambulances because they'll be 3 miles down I-70.
That's exactly
We
right.
all will be.
But,
But
I can't,
But
my
in-
problem is I can't find,
But in that scenario, within a half an hour, he could have ambulances back, okay? But in that scenario, his staff is protected.
right, well, I understand that.
Exactly.
I
That's
understand that.
But he can replace ambulances in half an hour.
Yeah, I
That's just-
understand that.
that's
But
just-
it's just, my problem is I could not find any underlying justification to go to the new ICC 500 standard by whoever comes up with the International Building Code. And to me, they had a reason for doing that. And I have a hard time overruling them.
Well, you're one vote, you got 7 other votes going to go the other way.
No, there's only.
Don't take this the wrong way, Kyle, but some engineer sitting behind a desk came up with that. And
Yeah.
I've seen plenty of them, and you've seen.
Oh, yeah, I
Come up
definitely.
with goofy ideas.
Okay,
So let's move on.
okay, very
Okay.
good.
Okay, my concerns are
No
still there,
offense, Kyle.
but they're
If
done.
there's not any other new discussion, I'm going to call for the question. Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion of advancing 1508, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no.
No.
Do we have a hand on the no?
I think we just had one. I
Thank you,
got
very
it.
good. Yeses have it, we'll move forward.
Gotta vote my conscience.
Yes.
Okay, we'll move on to second
why we're here.
reading ordinances. 1503 has to do with, and I love this, but renaming a street from River Valley to Easy Street.
I love this.
You're just
And
jealous you don't live there.
that's
sir.
right. I may have to go up and down Easy Street anyway. And establishing effective days. So there is any discussion of, excuse me.
I'm the only one who voted
Councilman
against
Braun,
this
would
fight.
you please present 1503
I just thought I
by
was
title
getting
only?
ignored tonight all the way across, so it's okay. Bill 1503, an ordinance renaming Riverview Road to Easy Street and establishing an effective date. I make a motion to read 1503 for the third reading at tonight's council.
Second.
Thank you. Have a motion and a second to advance 1503 for third reading. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. Yeses have it. So we're going to have Easy Street if we
Let's have
advance it
another
one
reading.
more time.
Yes. Bill 1503, an ordinance renaming River Valley Road to Easy Street and establishing an effective date. I make a motion, a motion for final passage at tonight's meeting.
Second. Be like the man on Easy Street.
Very good. I have a motion and a second to advance 1503 for final consideration. Is there any further discussion?
I have a question. Don't we have to do a third reading?
We
just
just
did.
did.
That was the third.
I thought that was the second reading.
We just did.
That was the third reading.
Oh, okay,
You slipped.
His first reading was the second reading, so his second
Okay.
reading was the third reading.
okay.
My only question is on Easy Street, are they going to be serving hurricanes?
No, they got some interesting looking houses on there now.
I hope not. Okay. Without any further discussion, all those in favor of advancing 1503 for final consideration, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. Okay, yeses have it. You've heard bill number 1503 presented 3 times. It's now time for final vote. Please signify your vote as the clerk reads the roll by yes or no.
And Mr. Shyland?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Reclue?
Yes.
Mr. Simmons?
Yes.
Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn?
Yes.
And Mr. Braun.
Yes.
7 council members affirmative.
Very good, thank you. 1503
Done.
passes. Now consider bill number 1504, which is a bill that, for second reading, that has to do with budget adjustments and final adjustment for the 2017 budget or financials. Councilman Moore, would you please present bill number 1504, second reading, and we can go to third tonight also, if you will,
All right.
by title only.
Bill number 1504, an ordinance authorizing amendments to the City of Fulton budget for the fiscal year 2017 as outlined in Article 8, Financial Procedures, Section 8.8, Amendment after Adoption, Paragraph C, Transfer Appropriations, Fulton City Charter, Establishment Effective Date. I move this for third reading by title only at tonight's meeting.
Thank you. I have a motion to advance bill 1504. Is there and a second?
We need
Second.
a second. There
Oh,
we go.
I need a second.
Thank
Okay,
you.
I got a second.
Now we got one.
So is there any further discussion? Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying yes.
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 All those opposed, no. Very good. Councilman Moore, if you'd please present 1504 for third reading.
Bill number 1504, an ordinance authorizing amendments to the City of Fulton budget for the fiscal year 2017 is outlined in Article 8, Financial Procedures, Section 8.8, Amendments after Adoption, Paragraph C, Transfer Appropriations, Fulton City Charter, establishing an effective date. I move this for final passage at tonight's meeting.
Second.
Very good, thank you. I have a motion second to advance 1504 for third reading. final passage, final consideration. Yeah. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. Very good. Now time for final consideration of bill number 1504. As the clerk reads the roll, please signify your vote by yes or no.
Okay, Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Reclus?
Yes.
Mr. Simmons?
Yes.
Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Braun?
Yes.
And Mr. Schuylen?
Yes.
7 council members affirmative.
Very good, thank you. We'll now consider bill number 1505, which is an ordinance that has to do with approving a Plat 1 for Willow Creek Subdivision.
That's hard to say.
Councilman Simmons, if you'd please present 1505 by title only.
Bill 1505, an ordinance authorizing the mayor on behalf of the city of Fulton, Missouri to approve Plat 1 for Willow Creek Subdivision. This is a second reading, and I make a motion that we approve this and advance it to third reading.
Second.
Second?
At tonight's
At
meeting?
tonight's
At
meeting?
tonight's meeting, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
Very good. I have a motion and a second, I think I heard. To advance bill number 1505 to third reading. Any further discussion of the motion? Any questions of the plat? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying yes.
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 All those opposed, no. Very good, thank you. Yeses have it. Councilman Simmons, if you'd please present 1505, third reading, title only.
Bill number 1505, an ordinance authorizing the mayor on behalf of the city of Fulton, Missouri to approve Plat 1 of Willow Creek Subdivision. I make a motion that we approve this third reading of bill number 1505 and advance it to final reading, final approval tonight.
Second.
Very good. I have a motion and a second to advance bill number 1505 for final consideration. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. Very good, thank you. Yeses have it. Bill number 1505 is now, you've heard it read 3 times. It's now time for final consideration. Please signify your vote by yes or no as clerk reads the roll.
Ms. Reclus?
Yes.
Mr. Simmons?
Yes.
Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Braun?
Yes.
Mr. Schuylen?
Yes.
And Mr. Moore?
Yes.
7 council members affirmative.
Thank you. Bill number 1506 is a ordinance that approves some expenditures for a Violence Against Women Act. Councilman Stone, if you'd please present 1506 by title only.
Bill number 1506, an ordinance authorizing the mayor on behalf of the city of Fulton, Missouri to sign all necessary documents in relation to the 2018-2019 Services Training Officers Prosecutors / Violence Against Women's Act Grant Memorandum of Understanding between the County of Callaway, City of Holt Summit, and City of Fulton, Missouri, and to issue funds as specified. I make a motion to place bill number 1506 for third reading at tonight's meeting.
Second.
Very good, thank you. I have a motion and a second to advance bill number 1506. Is there any discussion of the motion?
Just one question. So, and I read what's on here is 2 detectives for 2 years for the counties paying 100% of one of the, for the county. Does that mean that Holt Summit, Fulton, and New Bloomfield is sharing one?
Basically.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion, any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of advancing 1506, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. Very good, the yeses have it. Councilman Stone, if you'd please present bill number 1506, third reading.
Bill number 1506, an ordinance authorizing the mayor on behalf of the city of Fulton, Missouri to sign all necessary documents in relation to the 2018-2019 Services Training Officers Prosecutors Violence Against Women's Act Grant Memorandum of Understanding between the County of Callaway, City of Holt Summit, City of Fulton, Missouri, and to issue funds as specified. I make a motion to place Bill number 1506 for final passage at tonight's meeting.
Second.
Very good, thank you. Bill number 1506 is, we have a motion to approve it for final pass, can move on to final passage. Please signify your vote by yes or no.
I think we need
Wait a minute, excuse
we
me.
need to, right.
All those in favor of advancing bill number, thank you. Bill
Yes.
number 1506, please signify by saying yes.
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 All those opposed, no.
There we go.
Must be getting after 8 o'clock, sorry. You've heard bill number 1506 presented 3 times, and it's now time for final passage. Please signify your vote by yes or no as clerk reads the roll.
Okay, Mr. Simmons,
Yes.
Mr. Stone,
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn,
Yes.
Mr. Braun,
Yes.
Mr. Shyland,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yeah.
and Ms. Reclus.
Yes.
7 council members affirmative.
Very good, thank you. I'll invite your attention to the announcements, and if you have any questions there, what didn't I do?
There was not a motion and a second to accept the audit. Is that something
Yeah.
that
I
you,
thought the notes said there wasn't any
Just,
action. we
just
had
to accept
take
it.
on the audit.
We generally, thanks, Courtney. We generally
Yes.
accept it, you don't approve it.
Oh, thank you. I make a motion that we accept the audit as presented by Williams Keepers LLC this evening.
Second.
Okay, that wasn't
No.
on my agenda. Okay. Very good, thank you. I have a motion and a second to accept the audit. Is there any discussion of that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying yes.
Yes?
Yes.
All those opposed, no. I do have one other item, back to the retreat for just a short. Do you prefer a day retreat or an evening retreat? Any preference on this?
Is it weekday, weekend?
What do you think?
I don't know, I'm asking.
Yeah. Well, I think
Which is best?
for staff, they would prefer weekday, but yeah. But I think probably to make, those who work on the council would probably
Yeah.
prefer
I would prefer
maybe an
weekend.
evening. So I think that's why we've done evening before. Yes, sir.
Evening.
Okay.
Evening.
Me.
I've got one thing too. I talked to Courtney earlier about the computers, whatever they are.
You got it.
I suggest, let's have a class, let her pick the dates. Good read the dates.
Once we figure out that we don't know how to operate it?
Once we figure out, and don't let Ballard get a hold of you.
Push the wrong button.
You'll be all right.
So I think what we'll do is I'll just kind of take a look and see, now everybody has their device, there would be a couple days, and whatever day you're able to come, stop on down and we'll,
Come both times.
or come
Yeah.
both days, and we
I'll
can
have
go
to
over it.
attend both.
Awesome.
For all 3.
I'll be sitting right beside you, Richard.
Very good. Okay.
Sounds good.
Those things we'll work at evening, and we'll work it for during the week type thing.
Motion to adjourn.
I do not have a motion need for an executive session, and I have a motion for adjournment.
Did you
Got it over
say
there.
you do?
Do I have a second?
No.
All those in favor say
Oh, I figured we
yay.
did.
Yay. Thank you. Nice.